pedestrian environment. I mean, this is like we're painting a picture for something really wow. This is just a nice apartment complex for someone other than our city. It's just, I think we're missing the mark in a big way.
Go figure.
So the location makes some of this stuff difficult.
And point J, ensure that provision is made for public and private open space. This doesn't say encourage or recommend or suggest, it says ensure.
Right. It is ensured.
We owe you clarification on that.
Public and private open space, sidewalks, pool. Just, I think that was not the intent.
We'll call it a private road.
Read that language again.
Yeah.
Does it say public and private?
Yeah. Ensure that provision is made for public and private open space. So, point number J under goals.
And you don't think that's met?
I don't think that's met.
You don't think there's provision for private open space? The pool, I think, would be an example of private open space.
I don't think of open space as a pool. I really don't.
Open space, though, has a definition, according to Mike, and I'm not going to argue for one way or the other, but a definition.
Being that not where a car is parked or not where a domicile is residing.
Not where there's building or park.
Correct. In previous, this is non-PDD applications, subdivisions and other applications, when there's an open space requirement, it's not just landscaping, it's not just parks, it's areas that are not built out, that are not used as road parking. It can be a paved pavilion area, plaza in some standard subdivisions, and not that it should be, but in our code it can be a hillside.
So in our park, a pavilion would still count as open space.
Open
space.
It
A
also
splash pad
reads-
still counts as open space.
On point I, it reads, vibrant, pedestrian transit-oriented environment to promote pedestrian activity.
So I might be wrong here, but I think what you're reading from are the goals. Is
Goals
that
and
right?
objectives,
These are the goals.
And our responsibility as council is to meet those goals and objectives.
You have to be a little bit careful here, and I'm going to be careful how much advice I give because I could be wrong. But there's a major difference between goals and standards.
But this isn't a zoning change. This is something that we completely control.
This is a zoning change.
Well, it is a zoning change, but it's not, but it is, help me Shane, it's not.
It's legislative and not administrative.
Thank you.
Which means, basically, your viewpoint, your perspective is absolutely, that can be the justification you give for the way you vote, and if that wins the day, it's defensible in court. If it goes the other way, you're still, that's what this process gives us as opposed to administrative.
Subject to possible equitable arguments.
Under point F, landscape designed to create a vibrant pedestrian environment. Vibrant pedestrian environment. Walking from one's car to one's apartment is a vibrant pedestrian environment.
Well, and that's where in the council staff report we sent out, the members of the planning commission, debated internally, but the document that we sent from one commissioner did an analysis of those goals and objectives for why he felt it didn't comply. The applicant has provided a narrative for why they feel it does comply, and that's the reasonably debatable standard that accompanies a legislative decision. When you have broad language like that, yeah, it is. Whatever side you land on, you have to have a reason that's
I just think
reasonably
whoever
debatable
wrote
to
this
be true.
language had a really vibrant picture in mind, and here we are as current council, and our job is to adhere to this. And so that's what we're doing right here, is debating the language, the quality of the language, and if this actually meets that standard or goal and objective that was formerly set. And I would debate that we are not meeting the goals and objectives of the vision of the PDD as it was written.
So would you say then, I'd be curious to hear your answer to this, that this piece of property could never meet all of the goals and objectives there? Would you say that?
No, I would say this piece of property has great potential. With a running water feature, that's a tremendous asset to any city. And we could have vibrant walkable, there should be a walking path, there should be a bikeable path, there should be something really spectacular about that water feature that lives up to the language of this PDD.
Having an easement that would allow that connection for,
Yeah,
Well, there's,
absolutely.
I think there's the question.
I mean, yeah,
I think
for me,
there's the
the-
question where we don't own it. You know, we don't own it, and so we can guide the development. I really like the idea of, those the pavilions are there. I think Alex good, I mean, Christina's good point as far as the 40%. But an easement to allow us to use that waterway for connectivity would be something I think we ought to require.
I think
Well, I don't know
here,
how we require an easement, but I think that we can probably require them to amend their landscaping plan to provide for a trail along there, and that would be one of the
Well,
public amenities that,
Could we put it in if they agreed to an easement?
well, you are gonna end up with essentially the same thing, because you're gonna have a requirement that the open space be open to the public. And so if they designate, and this is what Mike has to
Yeah.
clarify, if they designate that this is the open space open to the public, you
Yeah.
essentially have an easement,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
that you don't have to maintain.
Right. That's not your burden.
because I won't do it all, because I wouldn't wanna, see, all open space is open to public, because that pool, I wouldn't wanna take the liability for that, I'm on this place to keep that open, that's not gonna be a public pool.
I think what I'm hearing Tally say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if we were to take a spaceship and suck this up and move it and put it to the gravel pit, where people are gonna wanna put 5 or 6, higher height, bit more density, would we be okay with that being a flagship in our city? Is that what you were envisioning when you were thinking PDD gravel pit? Because that's not, I don't think in my mind, I'm thinking I would be okay with giving somebody much higher heights and greater density, and that's what I get. Because when I look at that, I see a couple buildings in a parking lot. And maybe it's just because it's this view. It could be because it's just, I'm looking down and I'm looking at the aerial view, but that's what I see. And so can you go back to the slide that talks about if we denied the PDD, they would have to go for a zone change from residential to multifamily.
R1A to RM probably.
And so, and what they would get for that is 130 units. Under the PDD, we're giving them how many units?
199.
199 plus 5 of the mixed use.
Okay,
So
so that's
204?
what's that?
200 to a 4. It's
Yeah, I
35
know.
units to the acre.
Okay.
Sorry.
What's the percent increase of that we're giving them?
Oh, I don't know.
30, 40, 40%, is that right?
30 to,
200, so we
yeah, 30 or 40%.
Roughly.
More language, it reads pedestrian-oriented spaces combined to meet the collective vision of the planning commission and city council. Planning commission already knocked this down, so to say we're collectively meeting a vision, that's a real stretch. I think Christine's analogy is beautiful though. If we envision gravel pit, which this was
This
designed
is,
for.
for me, on the
This would
gravel pit, it's
never-
completely different, and that's location, 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 because this is.
And it's in the gravel pit's in a different zone.
It's in a
It's just
different-
If this,
So
if
this
somehow
is-
they
That's
magically got that whole single-family development
So
attached
PDD might
here.
not be appropriate at this location.
The problem is we already,
We took an application, but
no,
it's,
we already determined
We expanded
that
the area that it
PDD was
could be.
appropriate at that location.
And it may
The
be different
PDD
for
overlay
that.
zone was amended to include this piece of property.
That was something that we did. The city did that, or the developer did that, sorry,
So there were two. That one was city initiated
for for the Walsh property.
to add the Walsh property in the whole northwest quadrant there. The applicant initiated change was the increase in potential maximum density up to 35.
our language also reads, consistency with the city's general plan, public amenities that encourage public pedestrian activity. It's so redundant, the PDD about the public, and pedestrian and something special.
Well, when that piece is landlocked, I mean, of course, my first preference would be to buy it, turn it into a park, and I'd be happy, but.
I agree.
You don't have the $7 million to pull that off.
Is that what it is?
Actually,
There's ongoing operations.
Oh, yeah, it's plus ongoing operations.
But is
So,
I mean, I suspect the PTOS committee would probably have a different choice for
Wonder
3 or
if
4 or
look
5
into
million,
that.
whatever the
Thank you.
number is.
well, no, I think it's a natural park site, there's no question about that, and it's good for that. But if it's not a park, if it's so, I think, what I remember when we looked at it doing PDD, we looked at its location and kind of being almost landlocked, that from a lay perspective, it seemed appropriate to allow that level of density because of the surrounding environment and its location.
The
Except
densities
traffic,
that surround it.
except that one
The density
lane
of-
service, only one way in and out servicing
Yeah.
this area, and it's a D minus.
Well, went from a D to an E, and there was an increase in wait times of 15 to 30 seconds, was it? I don't remember what
I
that.
don't know, except,
It didn't go to F, which is where they would have been compelled to do something else, right?
yeah, that's,
Typically. I mean, when I look at this, the setbacks are significantly better, especially concerning the single-family area. Because where we can require the buildings is much, much further away. 35 feet, 20 feet off of your property line is a lot different than even 50, these are like 50 to 70 feet back.
I think-
1.2 stalls to 2 stalls, I think is a
So what I'm
is a
hearing
major
is,
win.
because this is landlocked, we're gonna pass it as a PDD, even though it doesn't really meet the intent of what a PDD was written.
Well, I guess I'm saying, I'm just trying to understand how, because of its location, I mean, that's the general representation all the way up to Fort Union. And so I agree that we want trees and walkable and all that stuff. I'm saying here, and I think even when we go up Fort Union, it'll be different in different locations. But I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to see how.
I mean, there's a lot of residents in that area that could benefit from green, open space.
Yeah, I agree if we could buy it and do that, but.
Well, that was the trade-off, the gist of the PDD, we're letting them go to 199 plus 5 versus 135. And in exchange, they provide something that benefits the community. It makes a beautiful, attractive place for the residents and the density that's there. We're not getting that trade-off.
some of the other trade-offs are a little bit illustrated here. We do get the sustainable design principles. We get the affordable housing. It's not a substantial amount, but it's more than is required or allowed to be required in any other zone in the city, and it's a good precedent to set.
Does that get us to meet at one of those 18? Can we check a box with this?
Yes, I think we can. In our affordable housing study in 2017, it does reference the PDD as a tool to accomplish.
Yeah, several couple of.
So that certainly would be one. And then we have the increased standards that we were able to through the process work with them on that increased landscape buffer, the preservation of mature trees, things like that. So there are trade-offs. They may not be perfect trade-offs in every sense of the ordinance, but there are trade-offs here that will be.
You show that again, real quick. The pavilions and the path to and from those pavilions. Where does the path go?
Drawing. Can you go back to that drawing?
Where does the path
Can
go?
you zoom in?
Can you tell?
See it.
Which path? Sorry.
Go to that one right there. There's two pavilions.
There's one here.
Inside.
Into this commercial mixed-use unit.
So that's where the path goes.
That one looks like it ties into the building itself.
So there's a.
This one just comes from the pavilion.
What's this thing?
Here.
I was just curious.
Probably a
That's the
dumpster.
trash enclosure.
So one of the things
On the
that,
other
you
side
know,
though, between the two trees, what is that?
I'm not sure. It's not gonna work there, it'll work.
Oh, well, wrong button. Thanks for your help. Which button?
Red button.
Do I see a red button? So what's this here?
I believe it's just landscaping.
I was gonna say that, I've been to I've been to one Eagle Mountain City meeting, city council meeting, and so I sat through a discussion like this. It was a larger development, but what they seem to do with all their developments, obviously they're growing and they have more space than we do, but I just look at this and I think, oh my gosh, as a former runner, and I just see the outside of it, and I think, gosh, they even missed out on putting a trail even sort of on the outside for people to come run around along the creek and then go on the outside.
I think
Are
in
you
an
seeing
effort
it?
though, I think in an effort to provide buffer from the residents so people wouldn't go there.
The residents of the
Of the
homes.
adjoining properties. I think they did their best to create as much buffer as they could.
But couldn't they even have done it on just the south and then along the back, the western parcel and then along the freeway and then heading back to the east? I mean, I don't know, I like look at that and I think, oh gosh, that would be, because I think Cottonwood Mall had that cool, they did a cool thing on their Ivory Co. at the Cottonwood Mall. And I don't see what I've seen them do other places here. And maybe they're constrained.
But you're right, even having a loop around that back parking lot, yeah.
Well, you can't get across the river except for on the bridge.
Yeah, but that's all right.
Bridge.
Anyway, just something I see.
Well, I'm hearing 3 or 4 suggestions. One is to ask them to, please let me, you guys correct me, is that when they do the BMR report, include in that report the work-life unit.
Yep.
You're going to clarify for them in language that the pavilion open space is open to the public.
Well, yeah, we're gonna
Designate
clarify
what is open.
their proposed language that says significant spaces open to the public, and I more clearly identify those spaces.
To the satisfaction of,
Well, I think that starts with, what's your proposal? What's your intent there, and we'll identify that.
well, my long-term intent would be someday to see some type of a trail that would go along that creek. And we have, and I have no problem leaving it grass now, but eventually if you ever have the connectivity, you have the right to make it something more permanent.
With that right though, do you want the ownership of it? I mean,
We're
To
giving them
maintain the trail?
50% more units.
no, I'm just
They
asking
can
a
take on
question.
the O&M. 50%. I mean, really, that's what it is. I
That's
thought
the
it was
question,
30 or
so
40, no.
if they put it in grass now
50%.
and they own it, in the future, you'll have a really hard time exacting out
Or
of them to
put
put a
it down.
trail
If you go to
there.
the Cottonwood Corporate now,
Inches.
on behind Palm Away,
12 to 17
and
inches.
you go, when Mr. West put in his, he has a trail right there
Yeah.
between the residence and the property.
That paved trail there.
And then it's connected to our trail, and you go around the top, and it's connected over to the park.
My point is if you want it, you better get it now because
Great,
you're,
I'm saying.
you won't get it easily in the future.
I would say that would be there's a standard that I think we should set personally, and I know I'm biased, I admit it. When we see something like that, is getting that piece in now, like, because when we did that one 30 years ago, our trail came by 25, 30 years later, connected to it. But once you have that along that waterway, it gives an impetus to eventually get other pieces to work on. So I think that would be a mitigating point, I think, which is, I appreciate Talia was bringing that up. that's a valuable piece as far as public access. And you look at our big Cottonwood Canyon Trail, it goes through all those areas like that, and those right-of-ways are tough.
I've got that down. Well,
I would feel much better about proceeding if we had that. That would be valuable as far as connectivity next to the dog park.
You go back, we did that study with BYU about quality of life. There was talk of an urban oasis, walkability, connectivity.
Yeah, and that trail is all about the walkability, because if you look at all of that area, and then somehow come around, and what's the canal access we have further up there?
It's way up there.
Yeah, it's across 13. Well, maybe I'm thinking of it.
Oh,
Well, that's one, yeah.
I'm not sure. The Don Drive Canal?
Yeah,
That's a
By
island,
Mountain View.
Yeah, that goes.
yeah, it goes in Mountain View.
That
the
goes
East
way
Jordan,
east.
East Jordan Canal.
By the
You
time it
never
gets
know
over
when
the
you,
freeway.
how you can connect
Yep.
some of those things. It's relatively close, and it's not.
I'm a little disappointed. I thought they were coming tonight to give us some concessions to move more in this direction. Did that not happen?
One thing I knew that they were talking about was the BMR.
BMR. Which they did work on that language over the last week,
Yeah,
2 weeks.
on that BMR, sometimes it is timing. I'm a little concerned with them having just like maybe 1 or 2 days gap in there. It seems like it should be at least 30 days, if not the full 45. They need to hold that to get it built. If there weren't, I assume that there's a list.
Yeah, there's going to be lists, and we have a list if we want to.
If
They have
that
a
list
list.
happened to be empty,
That's why we've kept the replacement lease shorter than the standard one-year lease, so that it rolls more frequently, and so.
What's the precedence for managing and enforcing that below market rate?
So, at least from my experience, the reports are gonna be critical. So those reports are going to have the income documentation, verification of the tenants, showing that that's,
And do we have to have every,
that they're gonna have to provide that.
What's
They're
the
required
It's a
by
requirement.
ordinance.
yeah, what's the recourse if
and
we
what's
don't?
What's the recourse if they
Well,
don't?
then they're in violation of the ordinance, and
Okay.
and then it's a zoning violation.
Then what happens?
Like any
So
other
the
zoning
subject to
violation.
citation and
I mean, it's an escalating process.
What's the fee?
I don't know.
$50 left on the hand?
Well, no, a citation, it's a criminal process, so it escalates and you end up in civil court, generally.
that's a violation every single day.
Yeah, generally each day is a separate violation, and there's a monetary penalty associated with each day of violation.
So we can accumulate.
There will be some teeth in it.
You'd want it to accumulate at a rate faster than the differential between a BMR rent and a market.
Exactly. That's the real.
I think
I've been involved in projects that have had the BMR requirement that the city is required. There was a reporting requirement that they provided to us, and we would have to income verify those, but they show how
We just
that.
want the reporting to be on them, we're not required to keep the list, we're not required to go in and do
Yeah.
the inspection.
They have to provide that documentation to us.
Do we charge a fee, because we're gonna have somebody that has to manage that every year and look at the reports and.
What
They have to pay, if we
Yeah.
have to hire a consultant to determine what the proper rent is, they have to pay for our consulting fee. They don't have to pay for us to review their reports. That shouldn't be a very laborious thing, I wouldn't think. They were initially, from my perspective, they were initially resistant to the BMR approach, but I think that in an effort to, they recognize that this is important to the city, so that from my perspective, they've gotten their minds around it, and they've said that they have checked around in their industry, and they think that there will be no shortage of people to fill these apartments, these BMR apartments.
Well, gosh, I would hope so with all the talk of the Kevin Gardner Institute and the fact the Ivory sit on the Kevin Gardner Institute board. I would hope that they could find that in their efforts to believe it.
You really,
I agree.
especially like Doc.
You know, the noise is not I just wanted you to hit me.
That's what the Kevin Gardner Institute says. And the Ivories are on the board, the
Yeah.
Wilbur Clyde companies and.
All right,
I guess with my case, we don't get it now, probably wouldn't.
Well,
Well, easement's
I
a good
appreciate
thing,
that.
actually building the trail, and I think that's a good idea.
boy,
And if some of those other property owners behind, or, I mean, either to the south or north would be willing and able to do something similar.
Separate issue
that
later,
would be,
but yeah.
No, it is, but it would certainly, that would be amazing.
I think it's coming out.
Because this is like Greenfield, once you get over to the wall by the freeway, you, that could be you, if that's UDOT land, that's,
You can get it, yeah.
just cut down the weeds and.
But I would love to see that trail piece in there.
Can we give them one or two more levels in those two buildings and then ask for more open space on the west side or something?
That's
Yeah.
the freeway.
Well, we would have to,
We'd have to amend the ordinance.
Yeah, they're tapped out in the building height.
So we will go back to them and drill down on this open space issue, including getting a public trail along the stream
One side.
and identification of the other public use areas on their project. We'll make an effort to enhance those as much as possible, augment those as much as possible, make sure that there has to be a business use conducted in the live-work units, probably requiring a city business license, certainly requiring a quarterly report by the operator of what's happening business-wise within those live-work units. And so, anything I've missed?
It's free.
We require them, we just can't charge for them. We made
Generally.
the council made the policy decision that the council wants to know what's going on in the city business-wise. They are required to get a home occupation business license. It's just a no-fee license.
But with Lynn, if she's working for a company and just working out of the home, her office is somewhere else, that's not necessarily home occupation.
If you read the language, the requiring language for home occupation, it's pretty broad. I mean, it says essentially if you do anything to make money in your home, you should have a home occupation.
I'm talking about if she's an employee for an organization and just doing
Works out
work for that.
Does she do something to make money in her home? Yeah.
I'll bet everyone answers an email or two from home.
What, or
I'm gonna
invest?
have home occupation.
I answer emails all the time.
See, you can say I can't answer them anymore. I'd be in violation of my city's
I'm gonna call
ordinance.
my city.
You claim an office in your home?
Okay, I'm going to say it one more time. So with this vote, we're increasing the density over what they normally would get by 50%. 50% every year, as long as this is in existence. Are we feeling comfortable that the goals and objectives that we state in the PDD give us comfort to increase density by 50%?
Not even close.
Well, the density, isn't that what, well, the height isn't the density?
You're talking about, it's 50% over the alternative high-density house that they could get. So if they went the other way, to put it in perspective, they'd have fewer doors, but bigger buildings. Each apartment would be quite a bit larger, potentially, because they could cover more of the land area with building.
I'm closer to the neighbors.
Fewer cars.
Fewer cars, yep. Fewer doors, but larger apartments
Less
conceptually.
open- less open.
Who knows what they would do, but less open. None of the public access, tree preservation, so it would be different.
But I mean, that's the cap, right? That's the reason
Yeah.
for the PDD is
Yeah.
what you're giving.
You get a little bit, you get a little bit.
Right.
We're impacting the neighborhood significantly with our tiny little road, our one-way, only way access to this. We're impacting that significantly. In return, those neighbors should be getting something, wow, that they can utilize. And that doesn't mean looking at somebody else's pool. It means like something really tangible that the existing neighbors can access and utilize.
I don't know, it's just our first, this is our first PDD.
It is. And it's a little bit different than, honestly, the full vision, I think, when it was created, but part of it is, this is a kind of a unique parcel.
And frankly, it's going to be difficult, because if you look at the PDD overlay zone, it goes up Fort Union, and some of those parcels are small.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's going to be feasible to accomplish everything that the PDD zone talks about in terms of goals on small parcels that are developed individually. Mike, do you have a?
Yeah, and I think the approach that, and some of the planning commission differed, is you look at the PDD and those goals as they apply, not necessarily on a specific parcel, because as Shane's saying, if we have 3 lots that total an acre that front on Fort Union, they're not going to be able to provide the same amenities as the gravel pit, as other lots. So you look at how those goals and objectives are accomplished in relation to the broader vision of how that relates to the rest of the city, the Fort Union Boulevard area.
Right, there's a half-acre lot for sale now, commercial,
Yeah.
on Fort Union, just across from Mountain Park.
Yeah, by the fire station.
Yeah, by the fire station. When we look at this, it's gonna be about all, the only way you can make that public is you're gonna have to have something in front that allows it walkable through, much like we're saying right here.
It's yeah, I mean, the PDD is inherently context sensitive because it applies in so many different areas. So that is the challenge of it. That certainly is I mean, as we've heard, there's different opinions and viewpoints on how these goals and objectives apply.
I'd like to take these items, there's about 4 items here, take it back to them and see how they respond.
Absolutely.
Is that it?
That's enough for now. You guys had a busy night. Any last minute walk on items that you need to chat about real quick?
Snow, let's get home before we're snowing. We're out.
Let me see here.
Love y'all, but I don't want to spend the night.
Get a soft chair now.
Of course, I could probably dig my
All
way.
right,
Yeah, you'll
motion
make
to
it. You're
adjourn.
good.
You have a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Move to adjourn, second? Second to adjourn?
Second.
Second, all in favor, say
Third.
aye.
Aye. You're doing a good auctioneer.
Thank you. I third it.
All right.
Second, $500. Come on, $1,000.
Thank you.
So.
Exclusively people opposed.